Mission Transition is a veteran-led project started by Still Serving Veterans, a nonprofit that helps transitioning military members with all things employment as they look for civilian jobs. Oh, and it doesn't cost you a dime. Find out more at ssv.org. Anyway, here's retired Navy Chief Dave Lakin.
Hi, I'm Dave Lakin from Still Serving Veterans, and today this is Mission Transition with Dr. Stephen Crane. And Stephen, good afternoon. How are you doing today?
Doing well, David. Appreciate it.
So I'm going to let you introduce yourself because going through your LinkedIn bio, there's an awful lot of information there. You are definitely a an education junkie, and so why don't we start back with the military since that's our audience interest, and tell us about your military background, and then pull it forward to where we are today, how you got here, and what you're doing now, and do that in 30 seconds. No, not really. If you can, but maybe 5 minutes to talk about that progression.
Of course. So I went into the military. I always loved solving puzzles. I always loved people. My goal was always to try and move into criminal investigations. Towards the end of my enlistment, I wanted to make that move. I checked off all the boxes, got my degrees, you name it. I submitted my package. I got approved. Cool. So on the way to FLETC, right, you got to do your physical and you got to do your psychological exam. That's where my story really began back in 2017. I completely failed miserably, was immediately rejected, popped for a bunch of different things. So they handed me back my packet and said, go to the career planner, best of luck. Went over to the career planner, said, hey, what are my options? They said, well, that ship already sailed, so best of luck. I said, well, wait a minute. I was working at legal. I was like, wait a minute. That if you're saying I'm medically unfit for duty, that's a medical retirement. Give me one of those. And so they said, great, go to your flight surgeon. Go ahead and try to get that approved. I did. So I was put on a med board for 1 year. First 6 months you live at medical. Next 6 months you're supposed to transition out, get your benefits, all that kind of stuff. 72 hours before I was supposed to go into the second 6 month stint, I get a call from my GS-14 Quantico saying, hey, I don't know how to explain this, but you got 72 hours to vacate the base. Best of luck. So again, my life was flipped, turned upside down, and I became a stereotypical homeless veteran, lost everything, didn't have idea what to do, where to go, scraped and clawed my way back to civilization, climbed the corporate ladder, started a couple businesses, helped take some businesses public, all that good stuff. And then finally in 2020 is when everything changed. 2020 is when I finally got all my benefits after fighting with the VA for years, got 100% disability. And I immediately realized if I am the person, like I'm special, but I'm not that special. If I'm the person that's dealing with this, surely I'm not alone. So I began looking and start reaching out to people and saying, hey, what was your experience? What was your experience? Realized that so many veterans on a day-to-day basis experience the exact same thing that I did. So I was like, okay, we need to fix this. So I started one of my companies, 360 Veteran. To date, we've done over a couple $1 billion in benefits. We've helped thousands of veterans around the world. We've been very blessed on that side. But just like every good entrepreneurship or entrepreneurship process, when you solve one problem, it creates another. And the problem that it created was we're giving these veterans benefits, money, all this stuff, and they're blowing it on booze, guns, drugs, Vegas, trips, whatever, right? Trucks, anything.
Or
I'm not
just
one to say,
or just ignorance on how to manage their finances in a responsible, efficient way for the long term.
we're not taught this stuff at all. We're not taught in TAP. We're not taught in our transition. We're not taught anywhere from a financial literacy standpoint. So these people were doing all these different things with their money. And I'm not one to tell you what to do with your money and what not to do with your money, but I think you should be educated to have an option. The problem there was no education. So we started the financial company, Financial Legacy Builders, in 21 to really help build that financial literacy and freedom across the veteran community. Everything we do is completely free of charge for all of our veterans and their military families. And then that led to the final piece, which was our nonprofit, which is Veteran Roadmap. It was the roadmap that I personally took from becoming homeless to retiring myself and my wife and purchasing a home 5 years later. So that's our nonprofit, and that's where we're at in present day.
That's a great story, and that's very similar to how Still Serving Veterans started. Uh, you know, gentleman came home from war, and he was, of course, he was military. His father's military, and just didn't have the services, or not easily found the types of services that they needed to be able to properly take care of him. And so that was the birth of Still Serving Veterans, in a very tiny nutshell. So that was back around 2005 and six timeframe. Here we are today. We just celebrated our 18th anniversary, and we've helped thousands of people, going on 20,000 people. And last year we had about 20,000 conversations with veterans to help them with their veteran benefits, which we only do around North Alabama. But what my team does is help them with the veteran employment piece. And this is one of those outreaches that we use to be able to work across the country with people. But I know that coming out of the service, when they're in the service, they don't really get an education on how to manage their finances, how to make sure all the bills get paid. And then for me, being in the Navy, I went on, I think, 9 deployments in 24 years, and plus being stationed outside of the country for 9.5 years. And bill paying can be a problem when you're at sea for 6 months that could turn into 9, 11, 14 months, unusually. And so I know a lot of folks that came back to bankruptcies because they had done all the bill paying, and then they go out to sea and their wife's responsible, or their spouse is responsible for paying all those bills. And so now they have to pick up the pieces. I myself went bankrupt twice, and it can be devastating. It's of course it's makes it impossible to do things like get a car loan or get a home loan. And it can be, it's a blow to our confidence. We're out there and we're warriors, and we want to be able to fight and protect the country and take care of the people around us, and the people who back home who depend on us, and we can't even get our bills paid. So it just doesn't work. And then on the way out the door, your bills change a lot. Maybe you're used to living in base housing, maybe you're used to having a housing allowance or some kind of COLA, depending on where you live. And then not only does all those services go away, but it seems like, for a lot of people, it seems like that network of resources goes away. So, so talk about that. What kind of tell me about the power of zero, and how people should initially, you know, th- another thing on your LinkedIn profile was, what do I do with my TSP? That's been their retirement plan for a long time. Is, I don't know if I'm going to do 20, but thank God I have my TSP. And then they're out the door, and nobody told them, okay, now what do I do? Do I just let it sit there until I hit 65, or what do I do? So talk to me about that a little bit.
Absolutely. And to preface this entire conversation, right? Every single thing that I say is in the vast majorities, right? There's always onesies and twosies, little snippets that are different for everybody. That's why it's important to sit down and actually go over numbers and go through everything with a financial professional. So for the vast majority of people, there's really three different accounts that you can have money in. There's your fixed, there's your variable, and then there's your indexed. And the book calls it, tax now, tax later, tax never. And in those buckets, there are familiar accounts, and they all have pros and cons. In the fixed accounts, right, you have your checking accounts, your savings accounts, you have your money markets, you have your CDs, you have anything that's 100% safe. But the downside is there's not a whole lot of money that's being generated in those accounts, a lot of interest being paid, and it just is really no growth. But we recommend 3 to 6 months of expenses. And if you want to be a little bit more safe, 6 to 9 months of expenses, especially during crazy inflationary times like we're in right now. So that's one account. The second account is what we're all familiar with: 401ks, TSPs, real estate, cryptocurrencies, IRAs, all of your traditional retirement accounts that a lot of people think about, stocks, mutual funds. And that's why we call it variable, because it can go up and it can go down. And like we've seen in 2000, the dot-com bust, like we've seen in 2008, the housing crisis, and even like we saw in 2020, the pandemic, the market can go up and the market can tank overnight. But again, it is a traditional retirement account. We all know it. It's all very familiar with us. IRAs, you can put, up to 7,000 bucks a year into it. If it's a Roth IRA, even better. It's completely, you already paid the taxes. But then you have the 401ks, and that can help lower your taxable income today, which is great. However, like I'm sure we're going to dive into taxes in the future. In the future, you're going to have to pay taxes on that. And that's a very scary thing to consider where the country's headed. And then same with the TSPs, right? Any TSP that a veteran service member has, it's susceptible to market gain and market loss. And when you lose something in the marketplace, there's a 4-letter word that the book talks about. It's called math. Most people don't like math. And the harsh reality of math is if it goes up and if it goes down, it's going to take twice as long for you to recover from that low than it does if you were to never lose the money. Because, for example, if you have $100, you take away, or the market tanks 50%. Now you only have $50 left. Well, the market made a full recovery. Don't worry. The very next day, it bounced back and went up 50%. How much money do you have left? Most people say, well, I have $100 left. The market made a full recovery. 50% down, 50% up. They forgot math. 50% of $50 is only $25. So now you only have $75. That little thing, that little trick that the stock market gets us with is where a lot of veterans find themselves in hot water over the long term. Because over the long term, especially when you're nearing retirement, if you have any sort of bad year, your retirement's now screwed up. But that's where that third column comes in, the indexed. And now a lot of stuff that I'm going to say is going to be super controversial, and people are going to be like, well, okay, I already knew this was coming. Here we go. But bear with me because there's facts, right? I brought the book of facts today, and the facts are, if you look at the history of annuities, you look at the history of life insurance, you look at the history of the IRS tax code and how it was written and certain laws that are in there, there's a whole umbrella that's protected. CPAs can tell you about this. Some can. So some that are educated can talk to you about it. Hopefully, right? Attorneys can talk to you about it, hopefully. But it's nothing secretive. It's just people don't know what the IRS tax book actually says. And there's certain codes in there: 7702, 72E, 101A, all these different tax codes that exist for people just like us, but we don't know what we don't know. So leveraging this third account, the indexed account, allows you to grow money tax-free, access money tax-free, and best of all, there's benefits attached with it, living benefits. You get cancer, heart attack, stroke. You can have a portion of that money be able to be protected. If you, God forbid, pass away early, boom, you have something that's going to protect your family forever and ever. So there's other benefits attached to it as well, aside from tax-free growth and tax-free access for the rest of your life. So these accounts are very powerful, but they need to be a supplement. It's not a replacement for the fixed. It's not a replacement for the IRAs and 401ks. It's another supplement. It's a third. Think of it as a 3-legged stool. If you have 2 legs on a stool, best of luck if one of them goes out. But if you got 3 legs, now you're a balanced stool. Now you can weather tides. And if this doesn't work, you can bounce to here. If this doesn't work, you can bounce to here. And you have options, aka diversification. So that's the short of it. But I know we're going to talk a little bit more about taxes and why that third leg of that stool is so important.
So when I talk to people who are, working on their transition, people contact us as far as 2 years out if they're retiring. They put in their request to retire, and they can spend 2 years going through the TAP process. And a lot of times that's a discovery period to determine what does the job market look like? Where do my spouse and I want to land at? So we're going to stay around the base, or we're going to go back to where she's from or where I'm from, or we're just going to go where the job is. Like what I did when I retired. I'm Navy chief from Boston. My wife's a Jewish girl from Long Island, and we ended up in Huntsville, Alabama, which is a little foreign for both of us. So but that's where the job was. So that's where we landed. Fast forward down the road 6 years, and I decided to become an entrepreneur. And I bought a franchise. And when I did that, I said, well, I have 2 years of income in the bank. That's my safety net, so that if I don't ramp up as quickly as I would like to with the business, or as quickly as the franchise said that I was going to, and I was right and they weren't, um, at least I'd have that buffer to be able to rely on. And thankfully I didn't need it all. Some people say, well, I've got this big giant TSP amount sitting here for 200,000 or whatever worth of TSP, and so I'm going to take that and I'm going to start a business with that. So tell me about the tax implications of that.
Well, it's a very good point because a lot of people do this with their 401k. Right? Again, the TSP is very similar to a 401k in the way it functions and the way it operates. And what happens when you take a loan out against your TSP? What happens when you withdraw from your TS or when you withdraw from your 401k? Right, with taxes. Right? And depending
Taxes.
on the circumstance, you can pay a lot of taxes on it. And if you're less than 59 and a half, now you're going to pay a penalty as well. And then the worst part of all, you have to pay that back. You don't pay it back, that's a problem. Right. So all these things factor into it to make it where it really, really, really uh, is wise to not touch it. Like if there's any sort of money in there, don't touch it. It does not exist. But a lot of people look at that as a safety net when there's that third leg of the stool that can really be that safety net. Because with this, right, that indexed account, annuities, life insurance, whatever, with those types of accounts, you can access that money, no penalty. You can access that money, no taxes. And there's some also really cool loopholes and involved with that where the money continues to grow and continues to expand as though you never even took the money out. That's why a lot of people refer to this as the infinite banking concept, where you are now paying your own self the interest and the money continues to compound. So those accounts are very powerful. But whenever you're considering taking out a loan against your 401k or TSP, you need to be very, very careful. Again, highly recommend talking to a financial professional to see if it's going to be a wise investment. Because the worst thing you could do is disturb that nest egg, especially early on when you're trying to make sure that it grows the way it's supposed to. Because if you start taking out from it, which statistically you can look up all the facts on the 401k, not even getting into the fees, not even getting into that aspect of it, but the average returns of 401ks are abysmal. I mean, they are tiny because people dip into their 401ks. If it was left untouched, like it's supposed to be, then it performs pretty well. That's fine. But then you have to factor in logic and you have to factor in emotions. And those two things mixed with the human element don't go well. People look at it as a pot of money. God forbid something happens. People look at it as a pot of money. God forbid, or hopefully, maybe even you have an opportunity to purchase a franchise or a business. And they look at that as a pot of money that they can draw from. You do that, the taxes, the fees, everything that comes with it, it just makes the account essentially worthless at that point. So it's a very good point to bring up.
So what I try to do in helping people with their veteran job search is I try to make sure they don't take a pay cut on their way out the door from the service. So we have a conversation around, your total pay and benefits, the entire package, your medical, housing, all that stuff. what is your total pay and benefits right now? And I think you can go to the MyPay website. You can do a simple Google search and see, what does an E7, E8 with 24 years of experience make in the Washington metro area, total pay and compensation. It'll give you a number. And for me, that's the threshold. I want to make sure that when we go job hunting for them, we don't force them to take a pay cut on the way out the door. And that includes their vacation time as well. Most businesses don't want to give you more than 2 weeks of vacation on the way in the door. And that's part of the heartburn that I have is that I spent 24 years in the military, and when I got to that first company, they treated me like a newbie. Well, I was new to them, but that doesn't mean I was new. It just meant that I was new to them. I still had 24 years of adult work life experience, and my family was used to 30 days off a year. And so I didn't want them to be penalized because I got out of the service. It's supposed to be, my time to give back to them. So when the company offered me 2 weeks of vacation, along with the pay and compensation they were going to give me, I said, I tell you what, keep 5,000 of that and give me 4 weeks of vacation. And they said, okay, we can do that. You won't get an increase in vacation time for 11 years, but I didn't get an increase in the last 24 years. So that's fine with me. So when you talk about negotiating pay levels, that's one of the things that you can negotiate is, sometimes your medical package, there are tiers, and sometimes within a company, they give people higher up the food chain a different tier of medical benefits than they do people lower on the food chain. And so that can be a negotiating point. And, like I said, your vacation, so it's not just the pay that you're negotiating for, but it can be the other parts as well. Sometimes there's gym memberships. The company that I signed on to had a membership at the local golf course that was very exclusive. It was only C-suite at the company, and really a lot of people didn't know about it. And I don't care about golf, but that's one of those things that if you were coming in as the vice president or director level, and you know about those things, you can negotiate when you've got say you're in '06 for 30 years, you've got a good sized paycheck from the military. Maybe you have a disability check as well. And so that civilian paycheck isn't your primary concern. You want something that's fair for your experience and education, but it's not your biggest concern. I often have the conversation with senior officers, senior enlisted, about do you want to be rich or do you want to be happy? You know, because it's some people say I want to be captain of industry, I want to be a C-suite officer, I've been a commanding officer, and I want to be in charge of 1,000 people and millions of dollars worth of budget. And I said, do you really? Because that, usually along with that, it's going to come 70-hour work weeks, lots of travel, lots of responsibilities, answering to the board or directly to the CEO, and a lot of heartache. And you just been through 25, 30 years of military experience. Why don't you chill out, be happy, spend time with your family. You've got plenty of money. Is money the issue? Or as an opportunity to take care of yourself, take care of your spouse and kids, which is more important to you. So we have that conversation a lot. But with regards to the not taking a pay cut, if we can get folks to the point where they're not taking a pay cut, then their retirement check, if they have one, their disability check, if they have one, can go straight to the bank or whatever you're going to do with it. And so to me, that's the brass ring. That's what I want everybody to aim for that we work with here at Still Serving Veterans is I want you to take all that money that's extra that you've earned for, the sacrifices that you and your family have had to make during your time in the military and put it away and save it for when your kids go to college or once they start getting married or when it's time for you to retire and just devote all your time to yourself and your spouse. And so that's, to me, that's the goal. That's what I want to aim for. And you hear folks say, well, I'm just an infantryman, I just uh, I was in charge of some people and managed some operations, and I did my 20 and I got out. And so on my resume it's going to say I was an infantryman in charge of a missile battery or something like that. So, what do I possibly have to offer the civilian world? That's a whole different conversation that we have every day here. But um, for your part, I know that you mentioned you got out on medical retirement, and your LinkedIn says that you're 100% P&T, but you shouldn't have to live on that money for day to day, right? So best case scenario, it's a long wind to get me to the question. Best case scenario is I'm also a fan of people self-educating, right? They come to us for an education, not for me to tell them what to do, but to advise them on, like you said, on the options of what is possible for them to do. So when you're talking to folks, what directions are you aiming them in for? Go educate yourself here. Go learn about this. Do some reading on this and come back and we can have a more educated conversation.
Another phenomenal question, because there are so many outlets where you can get your education, so many good outlets, so many not so good outlets. So one of the best places, shameless plug here, is our website. We have an entire resource page, and we don't pull anything from me, right? It's not just a echo chamber of me just shouting the same stuff. This is experts, Nobel Peace Prize winners. I mean, these are economists. These are people that have written tons of books on different subjects. These are CPAs, attorneys, trust wills, you name it. And we compiled probably the best, in my opinion, that cover the broad range of financial literacy. I would love it if there was a certification or a designation of financially literate. Right? I know a lot of schools and a lot of educational systems are moving towards now mandating financial literacy inside of the classroom for high school students in order for them to graduate, which is a phenomenal step in the right direction. Part of my research in my second dissertation that I did a little bit. But that, I mean, that's huge. That's a huge first step. But our website, if you go to flbagency.com/resources, that probably has one of the best selections out there, from articles, videos, books, YouTube videos, movies, documentaries, and helpful links to free calculators and different government agencies that are out there that can help you during troubling times and stuff. That is a phenomenal resource. But also going back to what you said with the healthcare benefits and the different benefits that you get at your job, whether it's leave or life insurance or anything like that, that's also where sitting down with a financial professional, not someone that's going to charge you money to go over some advice and stuff. I'm a firm believer in education should be free. 100%. So if you're sitting
That's
down with someone that
to interrupt you for a sec. That is absolutely a key point for veterans in particular. So much of these resources, whether you're talking about financial literacy or education to better prepare you for a civilian job, or everything that we do at Still Serving Veterans, everything can be done for free. I've seen people pay $1,000 for a resume that they can get for free from a dozen different really good veteran service organizations. So I really want to pump that a little bit, and also the websites that you mentioned, we'll make sure we put them in the description here as well.
absolutely no, the free part is everything. I feel so bad when I see veterans constantly sit down with so-called financial fiduciaries, right? There's only a couple certified financial fiduciaries that actually exist. I am one of them. But there's so many people out there that'll sit down and they'll charge a couple $100, couple $1,000 to just educate and provide a financial plan or a financial resource for people. There are many resources that are free out there. I am one of them, and I'm happy to sit down and happy to educate and talk about it. But the reason I bring that up is for the healthcare and benefits at jobs, at least in my experience and the experiences of many other financial professionals I've talked to, I would really, really challenge people. Take a look at your LES, right, or your pay stub in the civilian world. Take a look at that and see what you're paying for healthcare. See what you're paying for your life insurance, your group life insurance through your company. And I almost guarantee you again, almost every single client I've worked with, I can almost guarantee you, if you were to say no thank you company, I will defer that. I'm not going to take those benefits, but instead self-insure yourself and go work with a financial professional that has access to every single company on the marketplace that's going to go out there and find the best products and services for you and your family. I can almost guarantee you, you will save a phenomenal amount of money by doing it yourself. And the best part about that is, God forbid you get laid off or you're in a transitionary period from job to job, you're not leaving yourself susceptible. You're not having to pay outlandish amounts of money for Cobra, for health insurance and different things when you're looking for that job hunt. So that's something that a lot of people just don't know what they don't know. They figure, oh, I've got life insurance through my job. And then it's like, oh, joke's on you. Your job laid you off 2 weeks later. Now what are you going to do? Or, oh, my family's good. We got good health care through our company. Then the company goes under. Company files bankruptcy. Now where are you and your family? So having that self insurance almost is always the best option for families out there. And that's something we do when we sit down and we coach and we counsel people on their finances, in addition to the resources we have on the website.
So you have a podcast as well where you talk about this kind of stuff?
You have inspired me, good sir. I think we should definitely start one.
Well, I know that you've had entrepreneur podcasts. I didn't know how much you dipped into this on that.
No, definitely we have an entrepreneur podcast through one of my companies, where we kind of do like a entrepreneurship incubator and a little bit of a networking mastermind across the state to help business owners grow. That's something that's kind of a little passion project on the side of mine. I just love helping entrepreneurs and helping them get their business up and running. But I 100%
Me
agree.
too.
We should definitely start something for the financial side.
Well, we should absolutely keep in touch. I noticed that you're ICF certified coach as well. I never got the certification, but at least ICF. But I have spent the last 10 years owning my own coaching business, and I love the um, the approach from trained coaches. A lot of coaches out there who there's no barrier to the entry to that industry, so they find themselves between jobs and they call themselves a coach till they get the job they want, and they can do a lot of damage. So if you're working with a coach or looking for a coach, it's important that you look at their track record, because some of them have an ugly wake behind them. uh, but yours is amazing and outstanding, and so it's very impressive. So as coaches, one of the things we talk to people about often is their mindset, and keeping a good attitude, and motivate to stay self-motivated. Nobody can really motivate you to do a thing. You're either motivated or you're not motivated. We can check in with you and see how you're doing and give nudges in a direction, but ultimately you're the one that has to go do the work. Also, one of your education paths has been along metaphysics, and without getting too deep into that, which is fascinating to me, um, the talk about the importance of coming out with a positive attitude. Not everybody's leaving the military. So like yourself, that wasn't really part of the plan to leave when it came time to leave. Med board type of events happen all the time, or maybe you suddenly find yourself as a single parent and you have to go deal with that, or in a position where you have to go take care of loved ones, and so you need to exit the military for that reason. Who knows what the reason is? But now you've got the added stress of, I have people to take care of. The paycheck that I had planned on for a long time is going away, and you get caught in this angst that can really be debilitating and make it hard to have a good job search. So talk a little bit about keeping that really good positive attitude, working with mentors, having people to check you and provide some accountability, if you will.
Absolutely. I love the fact you brought up the ICF credentialing. I always say, if you're working with a coach, No disrespect. There's a lot of great coaches that aren't ICF certified. No disrespect. But if you're not exactly yourself, if you're not
Careful where you go
working,
with that.
if you're not working with a coach that's ICF certified, you may honestly be playing just emotional roulette with people. And that's a very dangerous place to be because people don't understand the differences between consulting, counseling, mentorship, and coaching. If you don't understand the dynamics between the two, and when you cross over into them, it can be a very uh, rocky path. Let me say that. So I appreciate you bringing that up. But yeah, in my book, Flush the BS, Reframe Your Life, and Transform Your Truth, I was asked to write that book a while back because I had my journey from homeless to retired in 5 years. And they're like, how in the world, after the military screwed you over, the VA spit in your face, and all these things just kept happening to you? How, if it was me, I would have, gave them the double fingers and walked away. That doesn't, I don't like that. I said, well, I did want to do that, but it was because I had the right people in my corner, the right mindset that allowed me to push through. And the dedication to the book at the very beginning is to Dr. Lynn Barrett. She saved my life. I attribute my life to her. Without her and her guidance, those 6 months of me being on that med board, I I honest to God probably would not be here. She was a true angel, a true godsend. And to this day, I'm trying to track her down. If you know where she is, let me know because I want to go give her a hug. She is phenomenal. But she taught me without even teaching me at the time. This was hindsight. She was coaching me. She wasn't even necessarily doing therapy because she recognized from me, now that I found out, hindsight 2020, therapy doesn't work for a lot of veterans. It's good for the moment necessarily, right? It's good long term, but in the short term, what we need, what we desire as high performer, A-type personality military folks is coaching. What's the next mission? What's my next thing? What's my next checkpoint that I have to get to? If I have that in sight, I can push through. But if I'm just left in this aloof, right? Or God forbid, I'm looking back at my life and I'm just stuck in the emotions and the feels, that's a very dangerous place for us. That's why a lot of us repress it and we don't want to go back to that because it's not beneficial. All we're doing is just reliving the same things over and over again when meanwhile my brain is telling me what's next. How do I just move forward? And for a lot of people, that's a job. For some people, it's treatment. And for some people, it's just retirement, like get away from life entirely. But the point of everything is it comes back to your mindset and the gales that we carry, the gremlins, assumptions, interpretations, and limiting beliefs that we carry with ourselves. It's all talked about in that book. And it's all stuff that I learned through my coaching journey in becoming an ICF credential coach.
Yeah, that's great. And when people leave the military, we have this conversation often about a feeling of isolation. We don't realize the extent to which we depend on that tribe of people that's wrapped around us, whether it's your platoon or whether it's your squadron or whoever it is. We have learned to operate as a team for the most part. There's very, very few roles in the military that are truly independent, that they go out and do work autonomously without having to rely on a network of folks to back them up, in various different roles. But when you leave the military, that isolated feeling of, where are my people now? Where are the people that I turn to give me advice about finances, to give me advice about the job search, to give me advice about, how do I talk my spouse down out of a tree because they're worried too? How do I, the dealing with the kids, that we're going to go back and live with the spouse's parents, back where we came from. And those kids there in that neighborhood are not military kids. They're not used to parents going away for a period of time, another parent having to take over and then hand it back when the military parent comes home. And life is upside down. So a good portion of that conversation is uh, you have these networks are still available. Look on LinkedIn and look at groups, Soldier for Life and the various veteran groups that are out there. There's VFW and American Legion and all these groups in most hometowns, particularly around military centric areas, and they're there, but you gotta look for them, and they're not always terribly easy to find, but most of these things are just a Google search away. But don't let yourself sit in isolation, churning through. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I've seen people get completely derailed by that attitude of, I don't know what to do. I'm doing it by myself. I'm used to having resources that I don't have now. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? It can be absolutely paralyzing. So find those mentors. Veterati is a great resource. LinkedIn is a great resource. You know, get on Google and look for them. Go to your local VFW, American Legion type of organizations, but they are absolutely out there. And you can have numerous ones. You can have a mentor that helps you in your professional development in your professional development. You can have another one that guides you through whatever your educational path is. We have pastors and churches and family members who guide us through the whole parenting thing and dealing with kids in school, but absolutely go there and find them. Reading through your LinkedIn bio and resume, which is 19 pages, by the way, when you print it out, you've got an incredible educational background. um, that you are almost infinitely qualified to guide people on various paths, whether it's VA benefits or in their financial, um, you know, overhaul, so to speak, after the military, or maybe they just found themselves in a position where, all right, I just got out of the military, I'm 40, I really don't have a path, but I know that 65 is coming up quick, and there's no time like yesterday to start planning for retirement, because you never know when tomorrow might be your last day. Unfortunately, that's another thing, we live within the military, and we think when we get out, all that danger and stuff is gone, and that's just not the case anymore. Um, so I don't know where I was going with all that, to be honest with you, um, but having multiple mentors and the necessity of seeking out mentors. How did you do that coming out of the military? Because you had, that 6 month period where you thought you were going to have another 6 month period, and then boom, you didn't.
So I'll be honest, probably the first 6 months, there were no mentors. It was just me
Yeah.
surviving. I remember at one point in time, I kid you not, I would wake up at 6 o'clock and I would clock in for work. I would work from what was it, 6 to 3, 6 to 2, 6 to 2, 6 to 3, right in that ballpark, depending on the day. 6 to 2, 6 to 3. Then I would travel to the next job and I would work from 4 to 8. And they were both minimum wage jobs, right? So trust me, you're not making ends meet with that by any means. But it was two
Yeah.
full-time jobs, and I was doing that nonstop. I mean, Sunday through Sunday. My tank was done. Like I honestly could only do that for a little bit of time. I only did that for about probably 5 months, and then finally I was like, I can't continue like this, and I had a choice to make. I'm like, do I either go and get treated at the VA and suffer financially, or do I continue to burn the gas tank and God knows what'll happen to me? That's the unfortunate truth that a lot of people have to face. And I looked at that and I reframed it through some coaching practices. I was like, you know what? What would it look like if there was a third option? Because it's not always black and white. It's not always this one or this one. There's always many options. It's just we have a hard time looking at it because it requires us to think outside the box. It has a lot to do with our kiddish imagination of being a child and having that curiosity. So I thought about it and was like, what does that third option even look like? I said, well, what if I could find someone that could help me on the resume and the job side, but also allow me to go here. And so I started reaching out to people. I started connecting. I started asking for help. I mean, anywhere I could. Like, hey, do you know of a veteran? I would love to talk to them. Hey, do you know of a veteran resource? I'd love to get connected. And just asking. And people know, even if it's just one resource. They're like, oh, I heard of this wounded warrior thingy. All right, cool. That's one thing, right? Or, I mean, that's how I got connected with still serving veterans. Many, many, many years ago, I was just asking around, and someone said, yeah, there's this organization. It's like still serving veterans. Yeah, you should check them out. I was like, okay, let's see what this is all about. And I just started asking questions to people, and that led me to make connections on Veterati. That allowed me to make connections with higher heroes. That allowed me to connect with still serving veterans. That led me to Eric Brew. I mean, it led me to so many people across the military spectrum on LinkedIn and in person with local groups. So, in a nutshell, I just started asking how, not I was asking selfishly, who can help me? Who's a veteran? What's a veteran resource and how do I get connected?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, not everybody does that. So, if you take one message away from this whole conversation, that should be it. Because there's plenty of help out there. Either of our organizations can be the beginning to the help that you absolutely need to thrive on the outside. As veterans, we bring so much to every workplace. We can be such a benefit. We're sitting at 1.5% unemployment when the rest of the nation is closer to 3.5%, I think it is right now. And the reason is because we are in demand. We bring leadership and time management and reliability and problem solving and stick to itiveness you know that just doesn't exist in the levels that we bring it in the civilian network. So there's no reason for you to be out of work or worrying about how to pay your bills. You just haven't found the right role yet, and either of us can help you get there. So, Stephen, I could talk to you about all this stuff all day because I love it and I know you love it. Um, Give me one good takeaway. What do you wish everybody knew about what you do, and how can they connect with you?
There are 10 million different nonprofits out there. There are 10 million organizations and foundations that are out there that are looking to serve veterans. I looked at it and I said, these people do this, these people do this, these people do this. But I also noticed a gap. This person isn't referring this person to this one, and this person's not referring people to this one. So, Veteran Roadmap, my nonprofit, we created it with the intention of connecting resources together. We don't necessarily do anything special for the veteran community other than we have a massive, when I say massive network, I'm talking thousands upon thousands of nonprofits across the entire world that we've partnered with. Where if you need something, even if it's something small, this is something that I always talk about. When you're in the pits of despair and when you're at rock bottom, you don't even want a job. That's the last thing on your mind. You want $5 to know how you're going to pay for food for you and your wife. That's all that matters to you. It's Maslow's hierarchy. If I don't
I
have
was just
food,
going to
water,
say
and
Maslow's
shelter,
hierarchy of needs.
a job is worthless. Take
Yeah.
the resume and shove it. I could care less. I need $5 for food. But then once we give you the $5, what's the next ring? Then I need security. Okay, great. What does security look like? Are you homeless? Have you checked in with the VA? Do they have availability at their homeless shelters? No. Well, there's a guy out in DC. He has a bunch of homeless apartments. We give him a call. We can get you hooked up with something local to your city. There's so many resources that do that as well that can make sure that you are in a safe home with a lock on it and not at the night's inn paying 20 bucks a night, and God knows what's going to happen inside that hotel room. So there's many safe organizations out there that can shelter you, and then we just continue to move the needle every day just 1% closer to your desired goal. And that's the roadmap. We connect you with resources that are going to help you where you're at and not paint this grandiose dream of self actualization when you don't even have the food and water that you need. I've been there, I've done this. So I know from experience what that looks like and helping people on their roadmap to freedom and success. So that's our nonprofit. I'm happy to help out anyone, connect them with great organizations like Still Serving Veterans that once upon a time helped me get a resume. So 100% endorse you guys, love you guys. But yeah, definitely reach out for anything that you need.
So for folks who are watching today, keep an eye out for ssv.org. Subscribe to and like this channel to make sure that you can stay tuned to future conversations. I know we'll be talking more with Daniel, and we both have large networks that we're going to feed to each other to help get the word out. And we'll talk to you again real soon. It's ssv.org. And Dr. Stephen Crane, you're easy to find on LinkedIn. Look him up, and on his LinkedIn page is all the connections to his various nonprofits and how you can work with him directly. So thank you for being here, Stephen. It's been a great conversation. I look forward to the next one.
My pleasure. Thanks, Dave.
Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Mission Transition, a podcast for veterans. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, or maybe even want to be on the podcast, shoot us an email at social@ssv.org.